Like many members of the D&D community, suffice it to say, the past few weeks have been a bit of an emotional roller coaster for me. Like many other content creators on this platform, I've done a lot of soul searching, trying to make decisions of whether or not covering 5th edition content is appropriate for me. And to be honest, my assessment of the situation at this time is even if Wizards of the Coast does everything we want them to do, which is looking less and less likely that they will.
We interrupt this program for an important news announcement.
I think that the damage they've done to the community is irrevocable. But, for example, even if I personally didn't want to abandon 5th edition D&D, I don't think there's a market anymore for it because so many people have switched over to other systems. And like many other people, this whole damage to the D&D brand has caused me to look at other systems, since one of my long-term goals is to publish third-party products. And right now, Paizo is the one championing open platform gaming. So, seeing as the ORC seems to be a better deal on that front, I went ahead and bought the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook. Now, just to be clear on my personal plans, I am not jumping ship on 5th edition D&D. Like I've said in a few various channels, I'm not going to be doing product reviews or buying any more 5th edition content, but I have plenty of materials to go through now. My table has a lot of fun with 5th edition as a system, and I think that playing it privately, while not giving D&D its free advertising, is perfectly acceptable. And like I said in my I'm not mad, I'm disappointed video, one of the things that I've been trying to reconcile is the fact that this game has done so much good. I'm not going to allow Wizards of the Coast to keep impeding on my fun. However, I've been meaning for a long time to purchase the Pathfinder 2e core rulebook anyway, mainly because I've heard that there are a lot of really good things with this system, and some things that go against my design preferences. Hi, I'm John, and today we're going to be going over my initial impressions of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Let's get into it. Alright, subscriber roll-off time. I'm going to roll a persuasion check. You're going to contest it with your own d20 roll. If I roll higher, then it means that I've persuaded you to subscribe to our channel. Alright, here we go! Awesome! So today I got a 19. If you got below a 19, welcome to the channel. So as usual, let's start this video with some disclaimers. As someone who's gone really deep into 5th edition system, this video is all about my impressions of Pathfinder 2nd Edition with that specific background. I also haven't played Pathfinder 2nd Edition yet. I am planning on running the beginner's box, but I just haven't had time. And I also thought it would be helpful to have an initial impressions video and then a follow-up video that may disprove some of my initial impressions or confirm them. Now, I did play one session of Pathfinder 1st Edition, and already I'm seeing some stark differences between the two of them. That being said, I have created a first level character using the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rules. And I would say if you're a Pathfinder enthusiast or game master, rather than look at this video as things that I might have gotten right or things that I might have gotten wrong, I would use a lot of these initial impressions as a template of things to address or smooth over with any 5th edition veterans that might be apprehensive about switching systems. That being said, I have a lot of positive things to say about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. However, spoiler alert, I don't find the high points so high that at this time it's worth going through the pain of converting my whole table over to another system mid-campaign. I think the best way to put my perspective right now is that I am skeptically open-minded. So first, the things I like. And again, these are things I really like. Let's start with Pathfinder 2nd Edition's action economy. One of the first things I ask myself when reading through a board game or TTRPG is, how clear are the choices that I can make, and how easy is it to understand their implications? I have a whole other video called Complexity versus Depth you can watch for more on that. But to this day, I still have players that I've been playing with for years that sometimes get mixed up with specific rules involving 5th edition's movement, action, and bonus action. Some things like standing from prone, jumping, interacting with an object, and drawing weapons are categorized under movement. But interacting with objects past your one free object interaction as part of your movement is an action. A lot of the times, I see a lot of my players, myself included, multi-class into rogue and sorcerer in order to develop a reliable bonus action to use as part of their action economy. And this mechanical manipulation of 5th edition's leveling progression creates these wide power gaps between multi-classed characters and single-classed characters.
Are you ready to play, Runt?
Playtime is over, Kaiba!
Instead, as you are probably aware if you're watching this video, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, every character, on their turn, gets 3 actions. Everything's an action. Some things cost 2 or 3 actions. But if you're going to move your character, you take the stride action. If you're going to attack something, you use the strike action. And interestingly, spells most of the time cost 2 actions. And looking at the divide between your martial characters and spellcasting characters, at least from my initial impressions, there doesn't seem to be as wide a power gap between the two. Again, I haven't actually played like a full game of Pathfinder, but even reading through what some of the spells and cantrips are, I find that this action economy is much more elegant and easily understood. And there used to be times where my players would try to do something creative, and I'd see other DMs say things like, oh, well, that's going to take your action. But in terms of an optimal tactic, that action cost in 5th edition terms was too costly to want to do it. So instead, because everything is one of 3 actions, you can have a player try something as one of their 3 actions, but still be able to move and attack if that thing doesn't work right. Similarly, at least in the abstract, I am digging Pathfinder 2nd Edition's proficiency system. It just feels more right. One of the things I found frustrating from the one time I was guided through a Pathfinder 1st Edition character was that you had individual skill ranks and all this micromanaging of modifiers and stuff. And then when I actually sat down to play, I had spent like 4 times as much work creating that Pathfinder 1st Edition character than I would a 5th Edition character, but the experience was almost exactly the same. I still rolled ability checks the same way. My spells weren't super different in terms of functionality. Now that being said, 5th edition's proficiency system is a little too universal. It feels kind of watered down. And there are certain things about it that over the years I've gone, wait a minute, like saving throws. Only your saving throws that you're proficient in from character creation end up getting stronger. Yeah, there's the resilience feat or whatever, but there's no way to show that your character is increasing specific things rather than just the blanket leveling up process. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there are 5 ranks of proficiency. There's untrained, you don't get a bonus. Trained is a bonus of 2 plus your level, and then expert is 4 plus your level, master is 6 plus your level, and legendary is 8 plus your level. Now, the plus your level thing is where they start to lose me. Well, more on that later. But whereas in 5th edition, I feel expertise is overpowered because you're doubling your proficiency bonus, the scaling gets whack. It's kind of cool to create a fighter and have them be trained in will saves, but be experts in fortitude and reflex, versus a wizard, which is only trained in fortitude and reflex, but an expert in will. And a lot of times when you look at the chassis of each character class, you know, somewhere around levels 6 or 7, a lot of times it'll say something like, oh, this saving throw proficiency that you're trained in, you're now an expert in. And it just shows how like the individual pieces of your character are getting reinforced and strengthened over time. And I was saying it in a lot of my 1D&D reviews, but I hate this trend of giving a character class some kind of feature and then being like, oh, it's got proficiency bonus number of uses, and the number of dies is equal to your proficiency bonus, and your proficiency bonus is doing everything. It's like having the math unified by like one set trajectory just makes the game feel bland. Oh, by the way, something I mentioned way back in my Tal'Dorei Reborn video is I like when a book is, I don't know, organized? I don't know how well the camera's really picking this up. But you see, individual sections of this core rulebook have bleed tabs, meaning that there's a sidebar on each page, and there's a little tab selected for whichever part of the book you're in. And then you can see through the tabs how to get to each section, so it makes navigating the physical book way easier. I love it. The only thing they're missing is a ribbon bookmark thing. Another thing I noticed is that pretty frequently, the Pathfinder core rulebook will include reminder text many times. So like in each class, it reminds you where it's relevant, what a flourish is, and what that means. They describe attack rolls in more than one place and how you calculate damage from a melee versus a ranged attack. That's really helpful. Even though it's repetitive, it's a great reminder of the game's underlying mechanics in sections where it makes sense. I do have some other things that I like about this system, but my thoughts are nowhere near as in-depth. But let's still run them down anyways. Bulk! I love that there's an encumbrance system. And I also love that it's abstracted to account for both weight and volume and just general awkwardness. Critical specialization effects. It kinda drove me a little bit bonkers toward the end of my 5th edition run, how things like great axes and great swords, like, there didn't really seem to be a lot of meaningful difference between them. But critical specialization effects make weapon selection more meaningful. Degrees of success. One criticism I've held for 5th edition for a while is its reliance on binary resolution. Either you succeed or didn't succeed. In fact, in the 1D&D playtest, I was pretty excited when Nat 1s and Nat 20s were finally going to be introduced. In Pathfinder, not only can you succeed or fail, you can also critically succeed or critically fail. And you can either get that with a Nat 20 or a Nat 1 respectively, or if your success or failure on the check is by 10 or more. And I like how the different spells have different parameters for if they get a critical success, it means this, versus a regular success, which means that. I think it makes the game a little bit more complicated, but it's a good kind of complicated. It actually adds depth to the amount of surprise that can happen at the table. So on the flip side, I don't want to frame these next things as things that I don't like about the system. But they are things that make me nervous and a little more hesitant to make the jump to this system. The obvious one is the math.
F's for everybody!
Unlike 5th edition, I don't want to keep track of 5 different things to add to my modifier. I'm cool with ability score and proficiency. But when you start giving me item bonuses and status bonuses and circumstance bonuses, alright, I know item bonuses are technically a thing in 5th edition, but I can see players being overwhelmed by keeping track of the amount of things. And I find that the players that get really excited of keeping track of that math tend to lose sight of the narrative focus of the game. My one experience playing in Pathfinder 1st edition is the more numbers there are to keep track of, the more energy that's spent trying to process and keep track of all of them, which leaves less energy to create a meaningful narrative. To add to this, while I like the 3 action system, I think that multiple attack penalty is a bit much. I get from a design perspective that it's balanced. 4th edition D&D was also balanced. That doesn't mean it was well received. Again, I haven't played this system yet. I'm planning on running the beginner's box. My mind can be changed. But like I said at the outset, it's something about the system that's making me a little nervous. To go back to the proficiency system, one thing that I eventually grew disinterested with in 5th edition, And one thing that I can see Pathfinder 2nd Edition only making worse is scaling. I've been reading a lot of opinions on the fact that a first level Pathfinder character is doing, like saving the cat from the tree, fighting the kobolds in the cave. 20th level Pathfinder character is being redonkulous and mythological and fighting gods and doing wild things. I don't necessarily want that out of my experience. So seeing that your proficiency bonus is also adding your level, and picking up the bestiary and seeing that some of the higher level creatures have armor classes of 35 or 40, that doesn't make me excited to run it. I really liked bounded accuracy. I don't think it was a perfect system, but I did like the fact that you could be a level 10 character and like 2 schmuck goblins get some lucky rolls and it's like, wow, that hurt like a lot. This isn't like a judgment of how well it's designed. It's just my personal preference as a player is to have the system a little more grounded and to have the math a little bit more bound. It might be why I like Magic instead of Yu-Gi-Oh! On the subject of underlying math, something else that makes me kind of nervous is the role of meaningful choices. When I was first going through the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook for myself, I found the feat building system and how ancestries were presented, all that stuff. I found the system very customizable. There were a lot of build options. I could see a lot of different paths that my character could take. And there's a difference between having options when building a character versus having an option when a character is in gameplay. So for example, if I build a really cool barbarian in 5th edition, chances are the choices I'll be making are rage on my first turn as a bonus action, then roll attack rolls. It's not like I'm expending a lot of resources or I'm making a lot of choices with things that I could do with my attack action. One of the reasons I'd been so hesitant to look at Pathfinder 2nd Edition until now is that Cody from Taking 20 released a video a few years ago, I'm pretty sure, where he just talked about how he had been a real champion for 2nd Edition Pathfinder, but he was playing a game and he got to like 10th level with his party, and combats were just the same thing over and over again. They'd always start with the same action, then they'd do the same thing on the second turn, then the third turn until the combat was done. There wasn't a whole lot of meaningful choices being made because there was such an obvious optimal route. And that is something that makes me really nervous, and I can see happening looking at how the different feats work together. There's a lot of things that will change modifiers. So for example, Bless gives you a +1 status bonus to something. And there's lots of ways to like give -2 to your enemy or +3 for your ally. But I don't see a lot of choices being made in the sense that you have 2 or 3 different attack options and you're trying to determine which one is the best one to use for this turn. Granted, this is also a problem I sometimes see in 5th edition, particularly if you're not playing a spellcasting character. But again, this is just something that's making me nervous, and I do plan on playing the beginner's box. Take a shot for every time I say that this video. Last thing is another personal thing. I don't really dig the archetype system. I liked 5th edition multi-classing. I actually think there's a cooler way to do custom classing with the material I'm seeing. But I don't know what it is about the archetypes. As I'm reading them, I'm like, eh. I'm sure you could optimize with it or whatever, but I'm way less excited to use Pathfinder's archetype system than I am to multi-class characters in 5th edition. Overall, one of my goals is to create my own custom system that hovers in complexity somewhere between 5th edition D&D and 2nd edition Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder's organization, how the feats level, its 3-action economy, and its proficiency system, but I still like the math of 5th edition, and I like the concept of bounded accuracy. So if some of the math got consolidated in Pathfinder's system, and the scale of it was more toward the bounded accuracy model, I could see a best of both worlds scenario. But I want to know what you have to think. What things about Pathfinder 2nd edition did I get wrong? Did I get anything right? Because of this whole OGL thing, have you made the jump from D&D to Pathfinder? Or, like me, are you still going to play out 5th edition for a little bit? Let me know in the comments down below, and have an awesome day, everybody. Bye-bye now.